Today we'll explore RV's Import Cut app to enable flow production tracking's review and context features. RV 7.0 introduced cut-based contextual reviews across the browser, with overlay player and screening room, and natively on the desktop, with screening room for RV. RV's Import Cut app parses EDL information, compares against existing data in flow production tracking, provides a summary of changes, uploads the cut information, creates shots, and updates shot cut data. To get started, you can find more information in our Import Cut app in-depth documentation. The main topics we'll cover today are reviewing basic editorial concepts such as EDL, base layer movie, cut, kite item, version, shot, sequence, or scene, observing RV's Import Cut app in just the first revision of a cut and updating cut data, and using cut data for in-context reviews, playing cuts and swapping iterations from different pipeline steps. Our learning objectives are understanding flow production tracking's cut data model in Schema, which map default entities to basic editorial concepts, ingesting editorial data into flow production tracking to allow reviewing context, and navigating the cut interface to playback versions in cut context. Before diving in, let's refresh our memory with some basic concepts from flow production tracking's cut data model in Schema, like EDL, base layer movie, cut, kite item, version, and shot. First, we'll need our edit decision list, or EDL file. This is a cut metadata text file with the extension .edl. It's an itemized list of film or video edits to conform a cut. For editors, this is the primary method of transferring information about an editorial project's timeline. Each file has a series of lines, known as EDL events, that may contain timecode data, media clip names and their storage location, video or audio layers, transitions and effects, locators, comments, or notes. EDLs are exported from editorial applications like Autodesk Flame, Avid, Adobe Premiere Pro, or Final Cut. RV only supports EDL files in CMX 3600 format. If EDL files are imported into flow production tracking, they are mapped into two entities. The first one is cuts. These records will hold data like the EDL's title in the cut name field, the imported EDL file in the uploaded edit file field, the base layer imported as an MOV file in the version field, and the cuts link, in this case a sequence. Cuts may be linked to other entities like episodes, reels, scenes, etc. The second entity is cut items. Here you'll find all the EDL events associated to a cut, including cut order, timecode and frame range information, and their associations to specific versions and shots, if available. To learn more about all the cut and kite item fields, check out our cut data model and schema article. This is an example of a simplified EDL to show the events mapped to flow production tracking's cut item fields. For each EDL event, the first line defines the cut item name. Next, we have the timecode cut item in and the timecode cut item out values. The last two values of a line are mapped to the timecode edit in and timecode edit out fields. The from clip name note corresponds to the name of the file in the editorial timeline. Import cut will cross-match the text with a version in flow production tracking for the project. If it finds one version, it will map it to a cut item's version field. And if that version is linked to a shot, it will associate the EDL event with a cut item's shot field. The duration and in and out points in frames will be auto-calculated and auto-populated. The shot linking logic follows a priority order based both on elements in the EDL and information in flow production tracking. There are 4 different ways to associate an EDL event. From clip name, or version matching, this is the one we saw in the previous slide. Locator, commonly used in Avid workflows. Comment, notes prefixed by the string comment. Please note the format with the colon and space after. Or you may also use the note without label. If an EDL event has more than one note, Import Cut will use the first one in the file and ignore any that come after it. To learn more about this workflow, check our article on associating EDL events with shots. The frame range field on shots can also be updated by Import Cut. These fields are important because they typically drive the frame ranges that artists use for their renders when working on shots. Let's look at the cut items to see which of these values could be updated for the corresponding shots. Import cut will update the following shots fields when relevant. Cut duration from cut item duration. The shot's cut range without handles determined by cut in from cut item in and cut out from cut item out. According to the app settings, it will also update the shot's full range, or with handles, populating the head in and tail out fields. You may find more information about these fields in the Updating Shot Information article. In the Import Cut app settings, there are 3 options for timecode to frame mapping. These will drive the automated calculations to auto-populate the cut item in and cut item out fields for each EDL event. If selected, it will also update the shot's head in, cut out, and tail out fields. Let's look at an example with the first shot of our sequence in the chart. For the same EDL timecodes, we will get 3 different sets of frame ranges, depending on the option we choose. Absolute, the app maps the timecode values from the EDL as frames based on the frame rate. For example, at 24 frames per second, 1 second will equal to frame 24. For our shot, the timecode cut item in corresponding to 41 seconds, 20 frames, is frame 1004, and the timecode cut item out is 42 seconds. 10 frames equals frame 1017. Automatic, the timecode value will be mapped to the head-in value from the shot in flow production tracking. If that field is empty, the default head-in value for new shots configured in the app settings will be used. This option is commonly used in VFX, where every shot's full range typically starts at frame 1001. Relative. The app will map the timecode values to frames based on specific timecode to frame relationship. In this case, the timecode mapping is frame 1 and the frame mapping is frame 1001. Note that for all cases, the shot duration, 14 frames, stays consistent regardless of the option selected. The head and tail handles have been set to 8 frames in all scenarios, but you could customize the default head duration and default tail duration in the app settings if you prefer to have different values. Let's take a look at the editorial timeline to illustrate better these concepts. We have imported our EDL file into Autodesk Flame to see the EDL events in the conform view. This is our first editorial reference, a conform of 5 clips into a base layer movie. The conform overview at the top shows the list of EDL events. The timeline view at the bottom shows the cut with in and out points. For this first example, we are using still images as placeholders to create a reference of each shot's duration and cut. This is a common practice in animation, where frames of a storyboard are edited together in sync with any available audio tracks, like voiceover, music, and sound effects. To create an animatic, the editor exports the EDL file containing event number, clip name, timecode data, including the clip's source in and out points, and the record's in and out points. The editors may also export a movie file. We'll call it base layer movie, but you might also hear it mentioned as string out or edit ref. This is our visual map of a specific sequence, providing each clip's cut order and duration. Importing this MOV file is optional in RV's Import Cut app. Now let's review Flow Production Tracking's cut data model compared to our EDL structure. Cut data, EDL, and MOV files are stored in the cut entity. Each EDL event is stored in Flow Production Tracking as a new record in the cut item entity linked to the cut record. A cut can be linked to sequences and scenes by default. This workflow supports other entities like episodes, commercials, trailers, levels, and even projects. Although if your project has dozens or hundreds of cuts, this might not be a good idea. A cut can also be linked to one version, the base layer movie, if an MOV file is imported with the EDL. Cut items can be optionally linked to their corresponding shots and/or versions. Let's check out RV's Import Cut app. We will ingest the first revision of a cut and then update the cut data, comparing changes across revisions. To start, open RV and launch the app from the Flow Production Tracking Launch Import Cut Tool menu. Click on the Gear menu to open the settings. You can add a default group or receive cut summary notes. Enable automatic updates for shot statuses. Determine your preferences for omitted and reinstated shots. And for this example, we'll turn off Smart Fields since this is a legacy feature. You can also adjust the default frame rate or the timecode to frame mapping, and for new shots, you can define the default head-in frame and the duration of the default head and tail handles. Some of these options will appear or disappear depending on the timecode to frame mapping option you choose. Let's import our first cut. Note that your project must already exist in Flow Production Tracking before starting. For this example, we'll use an EDL with 5 different shots. Open RV and launch the Import Cut tool. Select the EDL and the MOV files and drag them into the window. Then select the project and the entity we want to link the cut to, like a sequence. In this case, the sequence doesn't exist, so we will create it from scratch. There are 5 new shots, the same number as the total, and there are no versions associated with them. We can also check the email summary and send it to our team. And once we're ready, we can import our cut and select the Update Cut fields on shots if we'd like to have this editorial data updated in the shot entity as well. Now we can view this info in Flow Production Tracking. We have a cut with 5 shots under the SATL sequence. If we go to the project and into the Sequences tab, we will see that there is a sequence with the 5 shots and the link to the cut. In the Shots tab, we have 5 new shots created. And if we go to Cuts, we will find the information of the cut, including the cut items. In the Detail view, these 5 items show all their editorial data. Back in the List view, the EDL and the MOV files have been saved in the Uploaded Edit File and Version fields. And if we go to Versions, we'll see that there's one version now with the base media layer imported with the cut. If we open the cut in the Media app, this version will start playing. And even if it's just one version file, the in and out points for each shot are marked in the timeline. This cut, however, appears as version 1, but we imported version 0. Let's go back to our cuts page and check the revision number. The revision number appears as a 1, but we can change it to 0 to match the cut that we imported in the media page. The cut name now appears as version 0, and if we play it again, this will also be reflected in the cut tray and in the related cuts drop-down menu. After the import, we have one cut and one link to a sequence and one version for the base layer movie. 5 cut items, 1 per EDL event, and 5 shots. Note that we don't have any versions for the individual cut items or shots since the Import Cut tool can only import the cut's base layer movie and not the individual clips. These versions will need to be submitted to Flow Production Tracking separately. If we have individual versions for each shot, we can drag and drop all the movie files into a versions page to create new versions. There will be one version record created for each movie file, all linked to the current project. At first, all the versions will show their thumbnails, but they're not going to have any other links automatically populated, so we can manually add the links to the shots. The shots now have thumbnails because they're picking up these new individual versions. And if we go to the Cut Items page, you can now add the version links to each of these records. If we go back to the cut and play it in the Media app, in theory it should play fine. But we're going to use this example to explain a very common error. In this case, the version's frame range is not fitting with the range of the cut. We can see that the individual versions are being played instead of the base layer. Let's go back into the cut items and check that the cut's first frame and last frame fields are filling and matching the cut item in and cut item out respectively. This will help to align the versions with the cut items and avoid any playback errors. Now let's play again. No more errors. For more troubleshooting tips, check out the Troubleshooting Cuts article. With our editorial data imported, let's learn more about cut playback, swapping and filtering versions, and switching between entire cut and mini cut views. Our animation team has created the first pass animation for each shot. Let's play the first shot. If we open the cut tray, we can review this version in cut context. The first version is pinned and it's playing the animation. But the rest of the versions are still playing the editorial reference from the original cut revision. If we right-click, we can swap the version manually to play the animation for the second shot. We can also filter by pipeline and play the latest in pipeline for all the cut items. There is a list of all pipeline steps too, so we could pick animation here. The pinned versions have kept the animation version, but the other versions are still playing the edit ref. This is because the versions don't have a task associated to them, so they don't have any pipeline step value available. If we go to our project, there are no tasks created, and if we look at our shots in detail view, we can also go to the task tab and verify that there are no tasks associated to that shot. The first thing we need to do is either apply a task template to the shots or create the tasks for each version manually. In this case, we're going to use the animation template that comes by default with the site. We select all our shots and we apply the task template animation shot. Now each of the shots will have 5 different tasks. The next step is to associate the existing versions with their corresponding tasks in a version page. We're going to type animation, the task name, in the task field. If we play a version again and open the cut view, since we had the filter on for animation, all the versions are now playing the animation the same way as when we picked the latest in pipeline filter. When we remove the filter, the cut goes back to the edit refs, because those are the versions associated with the cut. Let's try the animation filter once again. All the shots are playing in cut context with the first pass animation. We can play the entire cut or a mini cut. In this case, we have by default 2 versions on each side. But we could change this by adjusting the versions before and versions after in the drop-down menu. Let's run a second test. We will ingest the first revision of a cut and then update the cut data, comparing changes across revisions. Our editorial team has updated the EDL with the new animation versions, so we can import our first cut revision, drag and drop the new EDL and MOV files, and follow the prompts. In this case, our sequence is already created, and we'll see a new option to compare it to the previous cut. Since there are no editorial changes, everything appears blue. We could skip the email summary and just add a description for this new revision and import the cut. And now we can see it in flow production tracking. In the media page, we see the new cut revision with the animation versions. We can swap cut revisions with the drop-down menu and see all the corresponding versions. Let's check the animation revision and play the cut in the browser. Now we have all our animation versions. If we hover over them, we can confirm that the versions are automatically being picked up without applying any filter. Comparing cuts can help us to quickly spot frame range changes. This is a new cut revision with versions from lighting and animation. Let's import it. We're going to follow the same process as before, dragging and dropping our EDL and the movie file, selecting the project and the sequence, and we're going to run the comparison again, this time to the second revision of the cut. This time, there are some cut changes. If you go to the Cut Changes tab, you'll see that the head of the second shot was trimmed and its tail was extended, both by 1 frame. If you generate the email summary, those changes will also be outlined in there. This is our new revision with the lighting renders. We will import the cut and view the results in Flow Production Tracking. Now we have 3 revisions of the cut with a mix of lighting and animation versions in the latest revision. We also have an article explaining cut changes if you'd like to learn more. And if a shot appears or disappears from your cut, our app will let you know. We have a new cut revision with 2 new shots, and 1 more shot has to be removed. Let's import it to check the changes. Following the same process as before, we compare with the previous cut revision. There's a shot that has been omitted, and there's 2 new shots in the cut. We can see the details in each of the tabs, and if we generate the email summary, then we'll see the changes in there as well. Remember that in the settings, we can determine if we want to update shot statuses automatically and which statuses to use. Now we can import this new revision. For this example, the new shots and versions were already created in Flow Production Tracking, so let's check how they look in context. We now have our new shots, and if we swap between our cut revisions, we'll see that the previous cut had only 5 shots, whereas the latest has 6 of them. To focus on the changes, let's swap to mini-cut mode, and we're going to add just 1 version before and 1 version after to see it with the surrounding shots. We can also use the filter by status to see all the approved versions. The first version appears as approved, and we have our latest approved versions for most of the shots except for the newer ones. Notice that there's a mix of approved versions and pending review versions. This is because the versions of the new shots are associated with the cut, so they're being played back since no approved versions are available. If we have more than 1 version with the same status, we will play the latest. To wrap up, let's go over some troubleshooting tips. In some cases, your Flow Production Tracking menu may not be showing the option to launch the Import Cut app. This could be caused by a missing package. To fix this, go to RV, Preferences, Packages. Check the Installed and Loaded checkboxes for the packages below. The names might be slightly different depending on your RV version. Screening Room for RV enables the Launch Import Cut tool menu. This package depends on the integration package Flow Production Tracking Integration, enabled by default, but it could be disabled if your team was using RV without the integration to Flow Production Tracking. Flow Production Tracking Toolkit. This package supplies the RV mode that bootstraps the Flow Production Tracking Toolkit RV engine, which then hosts Import Cut and Python Console Toolkit apps. This enables an additional Import Cut menu different from the one from the Screening Room for RV package. If you don't see the Flow Production Tracking menu in RV, this might be because it shows a different name depending on your RV version. Look for the Shot Grid, Shotgun, or SG Review menu according to the previous versions listed on screen.